This is Joe Smith from the Midwest Football Podcast. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It all helps us grow our show. Look for our full show, too, anywhere you find podcasts. Links below.
Speaking of taking a lot of weapons, hold on just a second. We got some breaking news right now. Oh, wait, I think Green Bay just drafted another target for their quarterback. Because they drafted, let's see, two tight ends and three receivers in a class of about 5,873 prospects.
I want to point out they drafted 3 wide receivers last year, too. I don't even think all 6 of them can even make the roster next year.
Yeah, well, don't be surprised if they try to sneak some of them onto the practice squad, but yeah. Some of our Midwest folks might be happy to see Michigan State's Jaden Reed as a second-round pick. He really surprised me because I never thought of him based on his production at Michigan State, which is a team I follow closely. I never saw him as a second-round wide receiver, but you looked at his measurable numbers, you looked at his combine performance, you looked at his percentage of usage in the offense, and even though it was not a great Michigan State offense, he's got a real shot at the next level if the Green Bay quarterback ends up amounting to much. They did just extend him today for 2 years at around the level of what a fifth-year option would be.
I was interested by their draft as a whole because they continued their strategy of flooding specific positions. Like we joked about earlier, they've drafted 6 receivers in the last 2 rounds or 2 years. They drafted 2 tight ends in the second and the third round. And it goes back to even back in the day when Randy Moss was in the division. There was one year where they drafted cornerbacks in the first, second, and third round. And it's kind of like the strategy I was talking about with the Bears earlier was it's just let's see as much as we can get. It's induced competition and see who makes it out of the camp. And we might get the best out of these guys. That being said, I think they kind of reached a lot early, and that I don't like. I think reaching on and where the Lions reached, it was on proven players that we knew was good, just maybe not the best positional value. Lucas Van Ness didn't even start for Iowa, their first round pick. And he's a tweener defensive end, power defensive end, maybe tackle, but he doesn't have a lot of game film on him. And Luke Musgrave, their second round tight end, similar. I think he has in 4 years at Oregon State, maybe half a season worth of game film on him.
Yeah, they definitely went with a lot of guys that there is just not that much film on and swung for upside. It should be noted that NFL.com lists Lucas Van Ness as a linebacker. I would just put him as an edge guy.
Yeah,
because I think that was where his best work was. Which by doing that, then that means that the Packers also drafted 3 linebackers per NFL.com. A lot of people had Lucas Van Ness. You start to think about those silly season rumors leading up to the draft when all of a sudden everybody started getting a man crush on Lucas Van Ness and a lot of these other undersized pass rushers, Cansey, Smith, that ended up dropping like rocks. And the Packers were the ones that stopped the slide there. And, sometimes the team that makes that bet matters. If it's the Lions or the Browns historically or Arizona or somebody like that, and they take a roll the dice on a risky player, you're thinking, well, we've seen that not work out a lot. But when it's a team like Green Bay or Pittsburgh that has tremendous success, it's a lot different story. Maybe it will work out.
Well, and I do think they had a couple guys that I do like the other tight end they drafted. I actually thought he was one of the better value picks going later. So I thought it was interesting they doubled up on that right away. So even if Musgrave doesn't work out due to injury concerns, Tucker Kraft might be really good out of San Diego or South Dakota State. And then they got my boy Carl Brooks, defensive end out of Bowling Green in the 6th. I thought that was a good value. And then even Anthony Johnson Jr., the safety out of Iowa State, people thought he was going to go high. I think Chris Collinsworth even had him in the first round of his mock draft. He was a 7th round pick for the Packers. So I think as much as they reached early, I think they got some potential steals really late in the draft in the 6th and 7th round.
Like when we were talking about the Lions, if they end up winning a whole bunch of games, no one will care exactly where they got these players.